Here's a quick update on my yard from reseeding a couple years ago. One of my earlier videos, I tilled up this entire front area right in here. I didn't till up over there, I just tilled this up. And would I do it again? I'm not sure. You can almost get the same results. Well, you really can get the same results. If you look over here, you don't see much difference on this side as opposed to that side. This side I never tilled up with that big tiller that's in one of my earlier videos. Instead, I used a dethatcher attachment that you pull behind your riding mower, your tractor. And it is great for dethatching, but if you keep going over it over and over again, it ends up just tearing up the ground, which isn't normally what you want to do for dethatching, but is great for seeding. So what I found was I could actually go over those areas several times. I mean, it's no big deal. You just crank that tractor at full speed and just start going crazy with the dethatcher, and it just starts tilling up the area. And then when you're about ready to reseed, then you have the extra ability to then toss a bunch of seed over it and then run the dethatcher over it again, and that pretty much just tills it in at the perfect depth, and the grass grows great. So I'd probably do that if I was to do it over again, but I have no desire to do it over again. So anyway, this is actually also a recovery. So this lawn really got beat up bad this past summer, summer 2022. We just had some drought conditions up here in the Northeast, which is unusual. We don't usually get that. And that was a bit too much. So right now the lawn is actually recovering from that. So I overseeded again. I rented one of those slit seeders, and they work pretty good. But when you see like little, almost looks like lumpiness, that's just some areas getting filled in. So it'll look even better in the spring when it, it'll go dormant a little bit over the winter, but in the spring when it comes back to life, a lot of those areas will be hardened off and be much thicker. So another thing I did is I've switched to all Jonathan Green Black Beauty. There's a little bit of Black Beauty Ultra, and if you're familiar with that grass seed, a lot of the Ultra is a mix of tall turf type fescue, or is it turf type tall fescue? I forget which one it is. And then also some ryegrass and some bluegrass. But the Black Beauty Classic, or just regular, I don't know what you would call it, that is only fescue. I think it's 3 different blends of their fescue, and I tend to like that better. That is the most drought tolerant. It sends the roots down the deepest, and can take the heat a lot better. Because the areas where I saw over the summer that got beat up the worst were the areas where there was more ryegrass. Now you couldn't tell there was ryegrass unless you got up real close. It blended in great. I had some good ryegrass that had a nice deep dark green, almost bluish color like this Black Beauty does, but it just couldn't take the heat. So the Black Beauty is much better at taking heat. And anyway, so that's what the lawn looks like. This is kind of at its prime. I like the fall. We actually had a very warm fall. It's now November 13th. Today it's 50 degrees. Yesterday it was almost 80 degrees. So I should say it was that much. I think it's like 75. It was a warm day, and in days prior it did get up to 80 earlier this week. So really a warm fall. We've had a couple cold days here and there. I think one somewhat of a cold snap where the temperatures neared freezing, but came right back up to being warm again. So that's great for growing grass. The weeds are already, dying off. And anyway, so that's kind of where we're at with the grass. And I'm happy with recovery. I love fall. So your grass does awesome. And just not fighting the summer weeds, and you're not fighting the heat and drought conditions. You know, it just rained here actually, though you can't really tell with the clear skies, but it rained here this morning. Now, one thing I couldn't do over the winter, or over the summer I should say, is I was doing the Scott's 4-step program. I skipped step 3. Step 3 has got a lot of heavy weeding, you know, weed killer, and so you can tell, I'll get that to focus here. You know, I've got a little bit of clover here. If we get up close, that's clover that normally would have been killed off in step 3, but I skipped it because the lawn was so stressed out. And I wasn't too worried about it. I knew that, you know, it was actually pretty good after steps 1 and 2. And then having skipped step 3, weeds started coming in. Nothing major. This is actually one of those spots that got thinned out quite a bit, and I've had to regrow. The worst spot was actually up here. You can see it's coming back pretty good. There's still a couple areas like right there. You can see some new sprouts coming up. So we'll see what I do in the spring. Let's just see how thick this gets. So I don't really like seeding in the spring. That's one thing I've learned, is that here it's tough. I mean, you can get it to sprout, that's not the problem. The issue is that you're fighting the weeds right when the grass is starting to get established, is about when the weeds show up. So the spring sucks for seeding. If you do it if you have to, but fall's much better. Much better time of spring, or you know, end of summer, autumn. So this is another area. I used to have a flower bed here, and I decided that one was too much of a battle. So, and it wasn't exactly where I wanted it, so I went over it with grass. Anyway, that's my grass update there. So if you watched any of my earlier videos about reseeding and redoing this lawn, this is what it looks like now. A lot of soil amendment. Yeah. But fall is awesome.